let's now take a look at the things that we can do with our post exploit activities. So to my left up here, I have our Meterpreter shell, our beautiful WisASCII art here saying yes, you won, and then it's exploited our eternal blue vulnerability. And to the bottom right here, I've got our netcat reverse backdoor that we've set up on our previous video. We went into the registry, we configured the firewall rule to allow inbound traffic for port 443, and then we've also got that session now up and running as well. So let's go look at a couple of things. So anytime we're performing some sort of post exploitation activity, the first thing that I kind of think about is gaining password hashes, right? We want to dump passwords on this machine. So how do we go away and do that? So credential dumping, of course, is the process of obtaining account login password or information. Usually it's done in the form of hashes. So systems will store password as hashes. Sometimes they can be clear text as well. So obviously through the operating system itself, and then there's some system passwords through software that we can go away and obtain as well. And then we want to take those creds and those usernames and passwords associated with those credentials, and then we want to perform some sort of lateral movement to gain access to further information across the system, across the network, maybe across this user profile or this specifically this remote host that we're trying to exploit and gain more information further, right? So there's different tools and techniques that we can go away and do that. And that's what I want to showcase in this video, that when we go away and dump credentials, there's a boatload of different post exploit modules that we can use. We can use the same database. We can do a local phishing pop-up window that comes up that says, hey, pop in your password, and then users can enter passwords. There's other password type of techniques where we can load mimikatz, run the creds or command, and then that will spit out potentially, and I say potentially because sometimes the passwords are hashed. We then have to maybe take them offline, use John the Ripper, or use the hashcat, go online, use the cracked TrackStation account, and then try and crack those passwords to hopefully get some sort of user account that's valid that we could use to spray, to perform lateral movement, and so on and so forth. So let's look at running some of these post-exploit modules, and let's go through each of them. So the first one here that we can run is a post-exploit module that allows us to use hash dump. So it'll go in and look for the boot key, and then it'll basically, the boot key itself is a hash to hash the passwords on that account. So and basically as it encrypts them, we then have to go and get that key and then decrypt those passwords. So then it will dump out any password that it knows, we'll dump out those hashes of those passwords, and then we can potentially use those passwords for cracking, obviously take them offline, go crack them, and then try to authenticate into a system that hopefully will accept us. So let's run the first module and see how that kind of looks. So let's run post Windows, and then there's a gather. Now it doesn't seem to, oh, there we go, gather, and then we want to gather hash dump, and then hash dump will go away in just a moment. Let's see what it does. So it's trying to now obtain that boot key. Now the boot key again is a hash to then hash those passwords. So as it goes away, it hashes them and encrypts them. That's what that boot key is used for. And then we're going to go away and find that key, or Meterpreter is going to go away and find that key, and then try to decrypt those accounts. So it's going to say, hey, obtaining list of users and keys, and here they all are. So now it's spat out all the accounts on this remote host. And I'm just going to copy these because I do like to save these for future reference. Now, if we want to perform any lateral movement, we've got some sort of accounts on here that we could try and maybe just pass the hash of these associated users and see what else we can get access to on the environment. So let me just go out here and just say hashed passwords.txt, and let's just dump these all in here. And I'm going to save this, and we'll just we'll talk through these as well as we continue on. Now that's one way of doing it. So now that we've got this offline, we can go away and crack it, go to crackstation.net, put in these NTM or NTLM hashes, and then go away and potentially try and crack the clear version of these passwords. Then the other part of this is we can use a SAM database dump as well. So we can take the security account manager specifically within Windows, and that's basically a database file that contains these local accounts for the host. So typically they're found with the net user command. So if I can just go down here and just type in net user, this will then showcase all these accounts that are on this remote host. So we can then leverage that and then try and enumerate that same database. Now we have to do that with system level access is required. So if we've got a low privilege shell into that session, we won't be able to do that. In this case, we do have system level access, but I do also want to migrate to another process in a later segment of these videos. We're going to try and go through this because I do want to get a different sort of session on this remote host. So we do need to, if we're going to try and enumerate the same database, just think of it in terms of we do need a system level access to do that. So there's different tool sets as well that we can use to try and retrieve this same database through basically through informs of in-memory techniques. So we can use Mimikatz, we can use secretdump.py. There's obviously a bunch of different exes that we can run that can try to dump these accounts out. Now, we can also do this as well, as I'm kind of thinking through this process, is we can also extract them through the registry as well. We can go into the registry, save the HKLM, we can go into the SAM database itself, and then try to dump the local accounts from the SAM database via the registry. So I'm going to try and do that with this part of the process. So I'm going to try and dump out the registry process. I'm going to use the same module, so post, so it's use post, sorry, so use post Windows, and then we're going to go into gather. And this switch is a little bit different from the one that we used before. This is called a smart hash dump. So it's going to try go into the registry. So it's saying it's failed. So that's okay. I'm just going to exit out of this Meterpreter session. Sometimes it has issues as we perform these sessions. So you might have multiple chances to keep trying to do this. So I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to relaunch this executable that we've got with our Eternal Blue, and then I'll resume the video once we're about to exploit with the SAM database dump. So as you can see, session 8 now has been opened, so it didn't take too long. Let's try running that post module again. So let's go use, and then let's go into post, Windows. Let's see if this now works. Doesn't seem to like it, but that's okay. Let's keep trying. If it doesn't, I'll just go back into Metasploit and we'll run it through there. So let's go gather, and then inside gather, we're going to use smart hash dump. Doesn't like that. That's okay. Let's send this to background. And let's try running it through actually through the actual Metasploit framework console. So let's try through here. So let's go use post. Let's go into Windows, gather, and then we're going to gather the smart dump hash, and that's what we're going to use. So we're going to use this module, and then we're going to set this to our session. So what session are we on? Let's go sessions, tag alpha list. We're on session 8. So let's go into that session. So set sessions. Okay, let's look at the options. Okay, so it's assigned to our session. Cool. And let's run it. And hopefully, there we go. So now it's actually going away and it's trying to now dump the SAM database through the registry keys. So as you can see, booting, dumping password hashes, dumping the hashes from the registry. And what I will do, if this is going to take a little bit too long to dump, I'll just pause the video and we will resume. Well, there we go. So it's just done it. So it's dumped out all those hashes. Now, as well, what could happen here is if there is a known, one of the cool features is it says that there's no password hints within the systems. Typically, sometimes with a user account, there's an option to say, give me a hint of what my password is. We can set, maiden name, mother's name, dog's name, or whatever function that we want us to remember what that password was. If there are some sort of hints based on those password or those user accounts, it'll display them here as well, which is really cool. So it's gone away now and it's dumped out the user accounts on this remote host through the registry, which is really cool. Let's look at other ways to do this as well. So there's also single sign-on. So we can use a module within single sign-on to try and collect clear text passwords or credentials through the local security authority using Mimikatz, which is really cool. So that's an extension that we can leverage. So let's try and do that as well. Let's see if there's any single sign-on accounts that have been set up. Hopefully they're in clear text as well. And then we can maybe grab them and use them in our arsenal as well for potential post-exploit activities. So I'm going to stay here in our Metasploit module, in our Metasploit framework module piece. And then I'm not going to go into the Meterpreter session. I'll just do it through here as well because it looks like it's working. Okay, so let's go use post Windows. And then let's go into the gather module. And then there's one in here called credentials. And then, did I just do the wrong thing? There's one, here we go, the single sign-on. That's what we want. So let's go use, use, let's go use AT1. So this is the module that we want to use. And then we want to set the session. So let's set our session, which was, I think, 8. Let's look at what our sessions were. I have a bad memory. So sessions, tag Earl to list. Yes, session 8. So set session 8. So that's our current session that we need to assign it to. Let's look at the options. It's being set. And let's run this now. Let's see if it performs what we want it to look at. So this is where we're going to go dump those clear text single sign-on creds. And it did. It dumped them out. So that's great. So then we can also use this as well. So now that we've got this user, there's a SSH user here that we've got. There's a password. We can take that, and then we've also got this Vagrant user with Vagrant as a password as well. That's fantastic. So now we've got 2 user accounts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these as well, should we need to use them for whatever references that we need. Let's just do a nano, and let's say captured clear text passwords. I'll put that as a text. Let's dump these in here. Save that. Nice. So now we've got pretty much 2 bits of creds that we can use. What else is there to do? Well, let's go into our Meterpreter as well. So let's go sessions, whoops, in here. Let's go sessions, tag I to interact with session 8. And then let's load Kiwi, because then we can load our Mimikatz module as well and see if we can do the same thing and capture those credentials. So Mimikatz is loaded, which is success, nice. And let's do a quick creds underscore all. And this will allow us to go and try and view or basically extract all those saved credentials on this local system that we're attacking. So again, it's captured the same creds that we had, which was this Vagrant user, this SSHD server. Has it grabbed anything else? So it looks like it's just grabbed those 2 accounts. And then it's also provided the NTLM hash, the LM hash, and that's it so far. So it hasn't been able to grab anything else, which is fine. So it's still the same details. So that's another way of doing it. Now, the other cool way that I like to do this on, if I'm performing an internal assessment, if I'm on site to a customer environment, there's a phishing module, and not specifically, I'm going to go away and create a phishing, email or a landing page or anything like that. This is specifically on the LAN. So what would happen is, and this is what I was mentioning before, if we do a get process ID, we're in our process ID of 6120. So let's have a look at that, what that is. 6120. So we're in this spool SV. So we are already King Kong access. So we have our NT authority system. So we're already at that root privilege, which is great. Now, what I want to do is I want to de-escalate or de-privilege into another lower shell, like a system shell, maybe into maybe not into the Firefox. I do want to probably go into maybe something of the Explorer.exe. And then what I want to do is I want to, as we migrate into that process, there's a module that allows us to basically perform a phishing attack on the system by basically bringing up or popping up a login prompt, which is really cool. So if I'm on a physical engagement and I may have a shell onto this user's machine, but I'm struggling to maybe get additional creds, I can then try and do this. So this is the actual shell that I want to, by looking at the processes that are running, I want to jump in, migrate into this Vagrant. So this I can tell is the user that's using this session, and I want to go into that explorer.exe. So this process is 4812. So let's actually do that while I continue explaining what we're going to do. Running out of breath. That's okay. So let's go into 4812. Let's see if that's a success. Now, as we continue doing this, when we get that login prompt, this works extremely well when maybe we're trying to perform this after lunch or maybe before lunch or at busy periods, right? So it's great because it happened successfully. Let's get our process ID. So cool. So we're in that process now. So this happens really well when we're trying to get those credentials of users. So it'll come up with basically a little login network prompt that says, hey, pop in your password for your username and password. Now, if we're in a hurry or if we're performing this physically, this works wonders because it allows us to capture those creds. So let's go away and run this module. So I'm going to try and run this. Let's send this to background, what I'm going to do, and then we'll run it through our Metasploit framework. So let's go use post Windows, and then the module that we're going to use is gather, and then inside gather, there's one called fish Windows credentials. So I'm going to use that, and then I'm going to do the set session for our session 8. Let's look at quick options, make sure that's all correct. So we don't need any other requirements here. So process, so we've already migrated into that system process, which is great. Now, I don't have RDP access to the host right now. So what I am going to do is I'm going to run this, and then it's going to come up on the screen. I'm going to enter the credentials, and then you'll see that we're going to capture the credential here. So should this be a user, it works because I've tried it. So let's run the run and give it a second as it thinks. Okay. It's looking good. There we go. And now it's popped up with a security log on screen that says Windows Security, please enter your user credentials. And it's got the username, backslash Vagrant 2008 R2 with the Vagrant username. And now I'm putting in the password. So the password that we already know through the cracked version. So now it's canceled that session. Let's try it again. Maybe it took too long while I was writing it. So let's try it again. I'll enter it and see if we can capture it. So Vagrant, enter. There we go, completed. So should it be successful? That's how it come away and say, hey, this user that's authenticated to this domain. So now we've got the domain, we've got the username, we've got the password, which is awesome. That's what we want. So we want to have these user accounts, these hashes associated, and then we want to be going and performing these attacks onto these systems. So at this stage, we're doing really well. We've got the hashes, we've got passwords, and we can even attempt to change the password of this remote system as well. So now that we've got this password of this specific user, if we want to have more fun with them, we can go in and change the system account. So let's try doing that as well. So now that we're in this Metasploit module here, let's see if we can try and attempt to change the password of the account. So let's go use our post exploit module and let's jump into Windows. There's a manage one, and then we're going to change password. Now we would need to know the current username, the current password. So let's look at the options, what it's asking. So it's going, hey, you need to know, and the new password is going to be required. We are going to require the original password. We are going to require your session and a copy of the username as well. So let's try this, right? Let's go see if we can do this. So let's go set SMB user, and then it's going to be Vagrant as the username. So that's the username. And then let's set the session. So our session is 8, set SMB, I think set old password. Yep, old password. So the old password is Vagrant. Set new password. I don't know, let's just do password 1. Then what else do we need? SMB domain, we don't need that. So then we've got everything that we need. So if we try running this now, it should go through and basically change the password of this account. So it looks like it's gone through and completely changed the password to 1. So let's verify that as well. Let's try and dump out the account. So let's go into sessions, tag I to interact with session 8. And then let's load Kiwi. Okay, it's already loaded, that's okay. And then now that we've got Kiwi, let's try and jump into, let's try and extract the credentials, right? So let's do that. Let's go creds 4. Okay, that's okay. So let's try and look at the processes because we might have to migrate into authority system again. So let's migrate 6036. That still captured the account. Process itself. Give it a few seconds because I think we do have to run a system to run. Okay, cool. So that's looking good. Get process ID. Cool. So now we're in the NT authority system. Let's load. I'll load up Kiwi again in case anything's wrong. Okay, it's already loaded. That's great. Let's go creds or. And there's the password that we've changed. And that's fantastic. So we know that that's worked, and that's really cool. So I'm going to pause the video here because I think we've covered quite a lot of different time changing requirements. We'll go into a part 3 series and we'll go in through looking at idle times. We'll look at some network information that we can do, and we'll continue the process of post exploitation. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and as always, see you all in an upcoming video. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.